Okay, Bitcoin turned down with the Fed off of our resistance line in the weekly time frame with the linear scaling. I talked about that before it happened. I told you we were reaching that trend line and we were likely going to get a sell-off with it. We're moving now into the holidays. We'll get the PCE inflation data tomorrow. We'll see how the market responds to that. If it's hot, we could see further sell-off. Bitcoin in the market. If it's cool, we can recover. We'll be watching. Bitcoin has a very good chance of a top here in December or on into January on the resistance levels that I've been talking about in the weekly time frame using the linear and the log scaling. Bitcoin risk model is now turning with today's follow through to yesterday's sell-off. We're seeing the risk model move from risk on to risk off now, and the Bitcoin trend is now changing. So again, Fed sell-off there. Last time the trend changed and the model changed to risk off from risk on, we had that of the 100 period in the daily time frame, not seen on this chart, but we tested the 100 and the 50 right there, and then resumed the advance, and we moved back into the risk on environment up until now. So here we'll be watching to see if we remain that way. We can see a bigger sell-off with Bitcoin. Go sideways, as we did over here. We had a sell-off and then rebounded, and we went sideways. Could just get a bigger sell-off. We had the divergences begin to play out. Bitcoin did diverge with the risk on in that it moved to a higher high, but risk on made a higher low, a divergence between the two. We're back in a risk-off environment. We'll see if we remain that way. Watching our last minor high here to see if we end up clearing that area or if it acts as a major peak. We'll be watching. Watch the video all the way through. I'm going to be showing you the trend lines that we're turning off of, but I want to point, we're turning off two trend lines, and I just want to point out that the Fed meetings tend to mark with Bitcoin tops, bottoms, and continuations of the trend. And you can see that here again. Here we have another rate cut from the Fed, and we're turning down. Because we've had the rally, this will either be a continuation of the trend or need more data to know for sure, or a reversal. Over here we had a bottom. Here we had a continuation of the trend right here, the last FOMC meeting. It's marked some peaks, but the FOMC meetings matter, tend to mark turning points with Bitcoin or trend extensions. Bottom, trend extension. Go over here, we had a peak, a bottom, a peak, another peak, a bottom, a trend extension. So again, over and over, we see the FOMC meetings. The black is where we had the Fed raising rates. The red is where they paused, and then the blue is where started cutting rates. Something worth paying attention to. We're turning off these trend lines, and here's the one from 2017. So again, we are turning down off of these trend lines. What comes of this sell-off? I'm watching the monthly chart too. Do we end up with a topping tail by the end of December that marks a reversal? I've talked about the divergences previously. I've talked about the divergences right now here on indicators, and again, you can see it on a lot of indicators that we are forming divergences. So here in the monthly time frame, that has marked the previous peak. There at 69,000 back in 2021, we had divergences as well. So again, do we get a reversal here in December or January? And if we do, then to get a bigger sell-off, we would have to take out the 10-month moving average, this red line right here. Something to be aware of as we move into January and as we come to the end of December. About the trend line, so in the divergences in the weekly time frame. Watch the video all the way through. You'll see some important things. Lines we're turning down off of. We are in the Friday session, and we're down a little bit. And again, I'll talk more about that shortly. But I want to continue to point out this trend line right here on the RSI. Again, I told you we bounced off of it to go higher, and we cleared this red trend line right here, excluding the shadow right there. And we went up, and if you include the shadow, we slammed right into it. So we not only hit the trend lines that I'll be talking about in the weekly time frame, but we hit this trend line as well. And that formed this divergence, another reference point of a divergence, which let me just adjust my little trend line right here on the RSI. And you have this multiple point divergence, possibly giving us now a corrective move or a bigger corrective move, or possibly a reversal, because we've broken the trend line right here. And now here we are on the RSI trying to dip below 50. If you push below 50 and stay below it, you'll get a bigger sell-off with Bitcoin. If you dip below it and get back above it, then we can rebound. And again, through the sideways move over here, back and forth, we would drop below it, get back above it, drop below it, get back above the 50 level. If we get a bigger downward trend, we'll stay below 50 here. Notice this right here when we were bouncing off the 100 period, the pink line right there, and the 50, the green line, the pink line is 100. When we were bouncing off the 100 period, we went negative briefly with the sell-off. My signals said, hey, we were going to sell off right there. We did. But then I told you we were going to bounce off the 100. We did. Look what happened to the RSI. It went back into positive territory above 50 there, and it's been consistently there. Here we slightly came down to the trend line there and tagged it, and that was the breakout and the back test of the trend line here when Bitcoin broke out of the bull flag. But we've been consistently in the positive territory marked with the blue rectangle there. And again, now we're breaking it and we're going here slightly negative. If we stay negative, as we were positive here, we saw this big move up. If we are going to stay negative, we'll see a big move down. If it jumps around above and below the 50 level, then you'll have more of a sideways trading range. Just something we're paying attention to there with the RSI. Please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. You like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel today. I thank you for your consideration for that. Now just quickly, we have again the impulse line turning bearish with the Fed there. We have some sell signals that are being triggered with this, and we're taking out the cloud here. Momentum is going into the negative region. So again, the risk is we start getting a bigger sell-off at the trend lines that you'll see in this video, and bigger risk that we start seeing a reversal rather than just a pullback. Bars reflecting the trend are still orange, not red yet. It's trying to turn red with this bar. It looks like ever so slightly there. But we did take out the cloud with the Thursday bar, and we have a sell signal with the Fed meeting. And now the background is trying to turn bearish. So do we end up with a bigger sell-off? We'll be watching. Do we sell off with the PCE data tomorrow, or do we try to rally with it? Do we close strong? Do we close weak by the end of the weekly, end of the week with the weekly chart? And then we're going to be going into the light trading volume over the holidays. Things here bearish for Bitcoin with that Fed meeting. It's flipped signals back to bearish. The Fed meeting, we've seen the momentum line turn back to bearish. And we're now getting the balance of power negative here. So again, signals are flipping back to bearish. Swing move is going flatlined here. See if we end up getting a bigger sell-off over the holidays here, or if we make a recovery, get a mild sell-off, a bigger sell-off, and again, do the trend lines that I'm talking about in this video. Did they hold major resistance, or do we eventually try to clear them late December or on into January? The video all the way through, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Support and resistance levels. Now, momentum line bearish. We'll see if it remains that way. I warned you earlier in the week, at the start of the week, we were getting a divergence here on oscillator. I told you it could finish immediately, very quickly at the trend lines, or it may be that we try to clear those trend lines, now turning down off of, and it forms larger diversions. We'll be watching, but right now you're getting a bearish reversal of conditions. You've taken out the 10, and 20 period moving average here. So some bearish things going on with Bitcoin here, and we've got the red cloud, the red arrow, and the red bars. Does this evolve into a much bigger sell-off or a more mild sell-off? We'll be watching. Bitcoin and the stock market are selling off because the Fed is coming out, and I've predicted this was going to happen. I've been talking about this for months, about eventually the market is going to freak out because of fewer cuts because the herd believes that the rate cuts are bullish, the rate cuts are bearish. They're associated with the recession. We're about to get a recession, likely in the first or second quarter. Coin will eventually price in that recession. But I told you if we got a breakout, it could still go higher before the recession hits. Likely you're going to see a recession in the first or second quarter. The indicators are warning that. Recession indicators. The Fed dismisses those indicators. Blindsided. Now, the Fed is extremely hawkish when they should be extremely dovish. The Bitcoin price and the stock market moving lower. We got a quarter point cut out of the Fed on Wednesday. Fed signaling cuts. Fed fund futures starting to price in fewer cuts. Don't worry, they're going to get their cuts because the Fed is going to be blindsided, as they always are, as they were in 2001 and 2008, by the recession. And they'll end up doing the jumbo cuts as they usually do because they're blind. They're focusing on inflation when they should be focusing on the recession. And everybody and his brother is now expecting fewer cuts, no recession. Even said at the press conference that we've avoided a recession. And I quote, Powell said, "It's clear we've avoided a recession." We have not. It's just their Fed does what they always do. They're blind to things, blind to the recessions, blind to the warning signs of the recession. Their whole model for showing a recession stinks to high heaven. And that's why they're always blindsided. They were blindsided by the inflation. Remember, they told us it was transitory. They should have been in late 2021 and early 2022. They should have been total hawks, jacking rates up. But they took their time and bumbled and stumbled in and started raising slowly in March of 2022. And inflation reared its ugly head. Was telling us ahead of that, inflation's transitory. They were predicting, estimating that they would begin to raise rates by 2024. I predicted that they were going to do it in March of 2022, and they were still predicting that they were going to raise rates by 2024. That's how far gone the Fed is. They're years apart. They should be. That's why Bitcoin's selling off. Now, it could be Bitcoin's in a larger topping process and still reaches the upper channel line. I'll show you the target levels, but we'll be watching. Do we start a reversal here, or is it just a pullback we're getting? Is it a mild pullback, or is it something much, much deeper? We're looking for clues, but this is why we're selling off. This is what I've been talking about for the last several months. Again, eventually everybody's going to go, because, Powell, remember I was talking about how Powell keeps coming out the last couple of weeks with these Q&As that he's been doing. There's no hurry to cut. Now we get, the Fed hawkish 2.0 here at this meeting. We got a hawkish cut. That is being hawkish when they should be dovish. Back when the inflation was beginning to roar, and, it's transitory, or extremely dovish, they should have been extremely hawkish. They're doing the opposite of what they should be doing. Right now, we're about to move into recession. Recession indicators, which I believe are telling us we're about to have a recession. Psalm rule, the uninverting of the yield curve, and a lot of other indicators are warning we're about to have it. Fed and the deterioration in the labor market. Fed just shrugs this stuff off and ignores it. Just blind. Again, it's like the drunk driver, about to get the head-on collision. I talked about this on my stock channel. The Fed will overcorrect like a drunk driver, and they'll end up doing the jumbo cuts because they are blind. They don't see it. They're too drunk believing their own propaganda about the soft landing stuff, and Powell now coming out and saying it. Complete arrogance. That it's clear we've avoided a recession. No way. Soft landing stuff is fairy tales. That's why we're getting Bitcoin sell-off and the sell-off with the stock market, but we're moving into the light trading period surrounding the holidays. So again, Bitcoin could be manipulated back up, or it could be manipulated down further on very, very light volume, up or down. We'll be watching to see which. I'll show you what I'm looking at. Are back to bearish off of their trend lines of resistance. I gave you that warning in my last update. Talking about these trend lines in my last several videos, and we're now turning down off of them. If we get a rebound back up with the PCE data, we'll see if we close strong or weak by the end of the week. But right now we're down. Watching the close by the end of the week. Make sure you watch this video all the way through. Important stuff going on right now. Now, Bitcoin is in its first hour of trading for the Friday session. It just closed out the Thursday session. For the Thursday session, we were down the day after the Fed day 2.77%. For the Fed day, we were down 5.68% for Bitcoin. So again, a good push down after the topping tail at the resistance level. We got a topping tail in the form of a gravestone doji, taking out the 10 and the 20 period moving average. They have not yet crossed over, but we have taken both of them out, and we do have horizontal support. We had our triangle here, and we broke out, we back tested it, moved back to the apex into the trading range there, and then we had this push, and you formed this larger divergence on indicators in the daily time frame and in the 4-hour time frame. And again, we had the little topping tail here with the gravestone doji as we were slamming up into major resistance in the weekly time frame. I've talked about this at great length and detail. I'm watching the resistance levels in the weekly time frame using the log scaling and the linear scaling. I told you to be watching this trend line from the 2021 low right here that separated the two peaks of 2021. And again, if we take that and we exclude the shadows here in early 2022, it's pointing right up to the area where we came to here. We just slightly overthrew it. To be watching, do we overthrow that and get a legitimate break above it and go to the next level of resistance in the log scaling, the upper channel line, or do we get rejection here at it? Well, right now, we tried to get above it. We're getting rejection at it. We had a little fake out above it. We're coming back, though, to this trend line of support. Now, this is from the two peaks in 2021. The peak over here just under 69,000, and we're finding support there. So we'll be watching to see if we take out this level. If we do, we have the 10 and the 20-week moving average. Do we get something ugly? Or, again, do we eventually try to clear this trend line? Again, we may sell off, still end up getting back above it. That may happen in January. It may happen here in December on the light trading volume we're about to get over the holidays over the next 2 weeks with Bitcoin and the stock market. And during that time, the market and Bitcoin can easily be manipulated up or down on very, very light volume. So we'll be watching, the fat cats go away, and we'll be watching to see what happens here. Get a bigger sell-off, or again, do we try to rebound and try to get above this level? But right now, we're stalled at this trend line, and we have turned down off of it. Now, if we can clear this trend line right here from the 2021 low, and this is not the only trend line we're turning down off of, we have one in the linear, with the linear scaling as well in the weekly time frame. But if we turn down off of this, again, you can get a bigger sell-off. It'll rise up in January, but again, you still got a pretty good shot that, again, eventually we could try to reach this upper channel line right here, and again, it could take us to 115,000. It could take us on into 120 to 122,000 if we take our time reaching it on into January. Something worth watching right here. Again, Bitcoin's got a pretty good shot that it could peak in December or January at that trend line, or right here in December at this trend line right here, right now. So we'll be watching, do we get a bigger sell-off? We're now stalling at this trend line. We'll be watching the upper channel line going forward. We'll be watching to see what happens. And if we do get a bigger sell-off, how big is it? Weekly signals remain bullish if we end up getting a bigger sell-off. Right now, Bitcoin for the week is down 7.25% for the week. Now, not only did we try to get above that trend line on the log scaling from the 2021 low, and it failed. We did the same thing here with the linear scaling in the weekly time frame. Same exact thing, different trend line, but the same exact thing. That trend line that we looked at a moment ago was from the 2021 low, separating the two peaks. Here, I've talked about the trend line from the 2017 peak connected to the 2021 peaks. Again, here I've excluded some shadows and tagged the upper boundary at 69,000. And that trend line from 2017 to these highs are pointing straight up to where we came. And again, sellers were there. A sell-off with the Fed, with Bitcoin and the stock market. See distribution. Again, we still may go higher, the upper channel line. So some things to be watching there. We attempt to clear this trend line right here. Right now we're getting a topping tail at it and we're reversing off of it. We'll see how we close the week out. If we rally up with the PCE data with the market tomorrow or with Bitcoin, it'll be interesting to see if we recover. Do we get some kind of doji or something like that at this area if we rebound back up on Friday and on into the weekend with the Bitcoin trading? And going forward from this weekend on, the volume is going to drop dramatically and can easily be manipulated. We'll see if we end up getting a bigger sell-off off this trend line and the other one that I showed you from the 2021 low, or if we attempt to clear it sooner than later. It may be we sell off and rebound back up to it later this month in December or on into January. We're hitting the upper channel line that I've been talking about in the weekly time frame with the log scaling. Turning down off of the trend line here with the linear scaling, turning down with the trend line from the 2020 low off of the log scaling. Very, very interesting. And we talked about this. I warned you about this possibility before the selling ever started, my last update. Again, if Bitcoin can clear the trend lines that I showed you, the one from the 2021 low in the weekly time frame and the one from 2017 with our linear scaling, then we can go up and we can reach this upper channel line, which depending on when we come into contact with it, it could take us up to 115,000, as high as 120 to 122,000. Take our time reaching it. If we see a sell-off here in December and we go back down a little bit and then we come back up, and again, we'll see if we recover by the end of the week here or not. And if we do we try to break above that level and hit this sooner rather than later? But if we get a bigger sell-off or something even uglier, can we come back up and hit this trend line in January or in early January, one or the other? And if we do, again, if you take your time reaching it, you're looking at 120 to 122, maybe as high as 124, 125 if we take a while and reach it in late January. But again, this is what I'm looking for. If we can clear the trend lines that we're looking at right now, that we're stalling at and selling off, does that produce a reversal? Does it produce just a pullback and we end up coming up to this upper channel line? So just something worth watching. Now, I still think that Bitcoin can reach the upper channel line. The S&P hasn't reached its upper channel line either. It still may do it. The Dow, the Russell, they've already reached it. The NASDAQ came just shy of it. Hasn't reached the trend line with the log scaling, the linear. So again, I'll be watching the NASDAQ and S&P to see if they try to reach their trend lines later here in December or on into January. But again, I think you've got a really good shot of a top in December or January for both Bitcoin and the S&P 500. But again, my signals in the weekly time frame remain bullish, but we are turning off the level of resistance that I warned you about in my last update. I've been warning you about those trend lines here in the last several videos. As we're getting the sell-off, we're down over 7%. There's no sign of distribution yet. I'll be watching to see if any signs of distribution begin to show up. And again, if we could still end up going higher. Again, we had some distribution at the different peaks over here, but weekly signals are still bullish. And at the moment, there is no major sign of distribution. We are seeing selling at those trend lines. Maybe we see distribution by the end of the week or on into next week. We'll be watching, but right now there's no sign of that here in the weekly time frame. We're getting a sell-off at that trend line, and we're down 7%. Again, keep in mind that as we're turning down, we try to get above this trend line. We're turning down off of it from the 2021 low there, and again, trend line from 2017 with the linear scaling. We have this divergence here on the RSI. It may not be done yet. It may be that we form a divergence right here in the most recent price action. We did not do that over here at the 2021 top. We formed a divergence here at this peak, multiple point, and then we got another reference point over here where we just formed a peak, and that was it. We did form a divergence right here in the daily time frame, but not here in the weekly time frame. So again, it's possible that it is done at the trend lines I've been talking about, but we need more evidence of that. So we'll be watching closely with these divergences here in the weekly time frame. You got it here with the price oscillator. The MACD has moved higher. It is all over the place on oscillators. The stochastic roll over. So again, we'll be watching, is this a pullback or the start of a reversal at this trend line right here in the weekly time frame of the Bitcoin price? And then again, if it is, we got to end up dropping back below the 20-week moving average like we did over here. If we hold above it, then again, we could eventually break up through this level and just have it be a pullback and still reach that upper channel line in the weekly time frame with our log scaling. We did go towards the upper channel line. We also have the pitchfork from the high here and the low here. The expansion for the pitchfork, we didn't reach it at the March high. Still may fall short of it, but if we clear the trend line from the 2021 low and we clear the trend line with the linear scaling from the 2017 high and connected to the 69,000 high in 2021, the 2021 highs, then again, you got a shot at going towards a pitchfork. Again, that could take us above the target of 115,000 to 122. If we do try to reach that level, that would be, again, 125,000 or so. Didn't make it before, but just another level to be watching if we try to clear this trend line from the 2021 low. Here is the channel with our fib channel, and again, our 20-period moving average still rising. So again, we got to be able to hold. Bitcoin follows the 20-week moving average in the weekly time frame. As long as you're above it, that's positive. Even if we sell off, then you would have to drop below it to have something uglier happen longer term. There's some levels to be watching, and the 20-week moving average. Now, the Bitcoin price is turning down off of the 161 expansion, which is this green line right here, the 161 expansion of Bitcoin's average price. Remember, we bounced off Bitcoin's average price over here. I talked about that. That was our low at 52,000 and our low at 49,000. Got back above the 100-period moving average. That's the pink line right here. And now we've come to the 161 expansion above Bitcoin's average price. In order for a much, much bigger sell-off to happen, you got to take out the 100 and you got to take out Bitcoin's average price. We haven't done that. We're holding above those. Remember, I talked about bouncing off of the 100-period moving average. If you're above the 100-period moving average in the daily time frame, in the 20-week, in the weekly, that's a sign of strength. The problem here is we're stalling at that 161 expansion, and we're turning down with the divergence. Now, that's exactly what we did here at the 161 expansion with the second peak that formed in 2021. So something worth paying attention to if we stall. And again, the trend lines of resistance I'm talking about in this video in the weekly time frame with our log and linear scaling, we're hitting two different trend lines, and we're stalling there at least so far. Can we clear that level and hit the upper channel line? The log scaling we'll be watching, and it's again, depending on when we come in contact with it, that 115,000 area, or just slightly under 115,000 or so, right in that range, as high as 122,000 on the Bitcoin weekly chart there. If we can clear the trend lines we're stalling at right now and reversing off of, then we'll be watching if we can go higher in late December or on into January and go higher, but we're looking for at target levels for potentially a completion of a blow-off top. I've been warning you in the last couple of videos that we were on our way to setting up a 13 count, and I've been talking about the trend lines of resistance. Do we clear the trend lines from the 2017 trend line with the linear scaling? Did we clear the trend line from the 2021 low with the log scaling? You'll see all of that in this video. And again, I've been talking about it in every single video for the last few videos. I talked about this 13 count. And again, does that give us a pullback and we eventually try to go higher and reach the upper channel line, or does it start a reversal? But it did Do we get it and get a little bit of a trend extension and then see some kind of volatility? We completed a divergence. We got the 13 count, the last one. We corrected sideways and then got a trend extension here. We're seeing this sell-off so far this week. We're selling off over 7% on the weekly chart, but more than that because we had a rally and we went higher at the start of the week. 9 and 13 counts of marked price exhaustion and turning points. Again, they're not perfect, but again, we did peak. I talked about this. We did peak and we saw the sell-off. Is it a reversal? Is it a pullback? We'll be watching. Also told you we had a 9 count that was developing with it. That 9 count was canceled out with the Fed day there. And again, dropping over 5%. We got a confirmation of a gravestone doji there. And then also getting the follow through for that candlestick. There is risk of more downside and signals did turn bearish, but the 13 count did mark the top there. Very interesting. So will that lead to a reversal, or we're just going to get a pullback here and then build momentum to try to go higher? We'll be watching to see if we clear the trend lines, and if we do, then you have that upper channel line that I've been showing you on the log scaling. Pretty remarkable. We're turning right off of those trend lines from 2017 with our linear scaling and the trend line from the 2021 low on the log scaling, off of those trend lines right on the nose. The risk is that we get a top at those trend lines that we're turning down off of if we start a major reversal. We got this 9 count. We've gone a little bit higher. There's still the possibility of a reversal rather than just a pullback. We've had a huge run up here. Again, it's likely going to complete a blow off top at either the trend lines we're at right now or a little bit higher. We have major trend lines of resistance, negative divergences in the weekly time frame. Just some things to be aware of with these counts, and they're just showing price exhaustion, and again, not perfect. The daily chart you saw did make some really pretty amazing calls. Those 9 counts at tops and bottoms.